I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've got Jared Smith on the ground in Charleston, Evan Fisher in Asheville. Live camera over the skies right now of Charleston, South Carolina. It's 1:43 p.m. on the fourth day of February 2023, and the FAA has issued a ground stop at airports along portions of the Carolina coast, both North Carolina and South Carolina, stretching from Charleston to Wilmington, including Myrtle Beach. This is all because of the so-called Chinese surveillance or spy balloon. Our own Scotty Powell, working for WBTW there in Myrtle Beach, tweeting just moments ago that the balloon now is somewhere in that Myrtle Beach area. We'll show you some Evan Fisher's spectacular photos of it from over portions of the western North Carolina area in just a moment. But let's show you what this ground stop looks like. That means planes cannot take off from those coastal Carolina airports. You can see right now on Flight Tracker, looking at all of the flights, both military and commercial, there is now a big open space along the coast, really stretching from just outside Savannah through Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, and up to Morehead City. You can see how all of the other commercial flights are being kept further to the west, and the few flights that are showing up here are military aircraft that are out over the water. If we switch to another website, another view, this will show you just the military flights right now that are transmitting, and you can see at least one distinct military craft that has been circling out over the waters of Myrtle Beach. Now, those are the planes that we know about. Those are the planes that are in the sky. We have Scotty Powell working to join us well from that Myrtle Beach area. So before we get over to Evan, what he saw earlier, Scotty, we see your tweet, we hear you. What did you see?
Hold on one second. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see here at the coast. This is really drawing a crowd. I wish I could get this camera to working. But there's a lot of folks out here at the beach right now watching this balloon. Lots to go. Right now it's blocked by this big hotel, but it was pretty. I think you're showing the video now. It was pretty visible. So a lot of ground stoppages here at Myrtle Beach International. I think where Jared's at there in Charleston station of what's about to happen is I think is just as intriguing of what's going on right now.
Yeah, well, and here's where we're just in the process of telling viewers too. We don't know what's going to happen. We know that the FAA is saying it is security reasons that they have closed a lot of this airspace. And there's been obviously a lot of questions and a lot of speculation about what the military has done, has not done, will do, will not do. And so one of the questions that keeps coming up is what will the United States government do once this balloon gets out over open waters? Will they, quote unquote, try to shoot it down? We're not in a position politically or journalistically to tell you right now what the United States government's going to do when they get out over the waters, but we can tell you by looking at Flight Tracker that they have most definitely cleared the airspace over that portion of the United States just offshore of the Carolinas, which is very much adjacent to where this balloon is heading. And Evan, we've been watching it here on the western portions of the Carolinas. They didn't clear any airspace here earlier. This is something different.
Right. Yeah. So this passed through Western North Carolina earlier in the day, around 9 a.m., and then as it progressed through the late morning and early afternoon, we saw that pass by. Let's see, Charlotte. We saw it go by Florence. Even I think I recently saw a picture from Florence, and now, as we've mentioned, it is off the coast near Myrtle Beach. This is where it's really coming to a climax. We've been talking about this saga for a few days now. It started in Montana when it was first noticed, and that's when it first made news. And now it is actively exiting U.S. airspace. At least it's going off the coast, out over the ocean.
Right.
Now there's lots of speculation about maybe there's naval assets in the water. Just saw a report from our buddy Chris Jackson in Columbia saying that he's got fighter jets flying or moving rapidly to the southeast from Columbia towards Charleston. So there clearly is a lot of military action going on up in the air. Jets are being put into place, and something is happening. As James was just saying, we don't know exactly what, but we're here to cover it as it unfolds.
Scotty Powell, Jared Smith, I've muted both of you just because we were getting a lot of background sound from you guys. So if you need to say something, just wave at us. Evan, you tweeted a picture of this thing earlier. Matter of fact, kudos, you got on national TV with it. Your shot near Asheville a little bit earlier. So let me scroll down to your actual tweet here and stop along the way here, right? So this is kind of the NOAA projection model of where an object at this altitude in the atmosphere might go. And so far, more or less, that seems to be kind of right on course. But this is your tweet here from 8:50 a.m. this morning, Fairview, North Carolina. How hard was it for you to see, Evan?
It was apparent. The hardest part was wiping the sleep out of my eyes. I had just rolled out of bed, stepped out onto the porch, and was real bleary-eyed in the bright sunlight. Once I adjusted, sure enough, that balloon was way bigger than I expected it to be. And it's bigger than it appears in cell phone pictures. Obviously, when I take a picture like this, like the picture you're seeing right now, it does look quite large because this is using a zoom lens or a telescope. So I've seen some people using that as well. But for me on the ground, it was very apparent that there was something out of place up there in the sky. And it only took maybe 2 or 3 minutes to confirm that it wasn't just your everyday National Weather Service balloon, but it was in fact the same balloon with the same solar panel array that has been it's been tracked across the United States over the past few days.
Yeah, I want to talk more about balloons in a moment because that's a really good callback to like actual use cases for balloons day to day. Scotty Powell, we're continuing to look up at the sky, and I think we see it, right? So there's a small white dot there in the center of your video frame.
Yeah, I've gotten here on my phone, but that is the actual balloon right now that you can see. This is just off of kind of like if you know where all the rows of hotels are, and then there's kind of like a brick residential houses. That's where we're at right now. I wish I could give you a street name, but I failed. But you are seeing the balloon right there, and pretty. I mean, sunny day. I mean, no clouds. It's very clear, and what you're seeing right now is the balloon. In fact, there's a drone over my head right now.
There's like an amateur photography drone.
Yes. For right now, I'll say for right now.
Yeah. That's an interesting aspect. You know, a lot of those have very smart technology in them that will or will not allow you to fly in places you're not supposed to fly. And I would think a ground stop would be something that would prohibit that aircraft from flying. We've got Jared Smith in Charleston, South Carolina. We'll go back to him in a little bit. You can see him there on the road trying to get down towards the coast so he can look north up towards where Scotty is. But this balloon here, as has been tracked across the Carolinas, now being seen approaching the coastal waters of Myrtle Beach there on the South Carolina coast. And again, if you're just joining us as we draw closer to the 2 o'clock hour, the FAA has issued a ground stop. Planes are not allowed to take off from several coastal Carolina airports, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, and Wilmington. And the only aircraft right now that we can see on Flight Tracker publicly without any sort of security clearance is the United States government themselves. You can see the plane? Oh, no, he's talking to somebody, I think. I'm gonna take Scotty's audio down for a second. We'll keep it up there on the side. Evan, a moment ago you mentioned weather balloons. That is a very practical and reoccurring thing that is done here in the United States and elsewhere around the world to observe weather, which is what China claims this balloon is doing. But let me ask you: you have launched weather balloons. What type of insight can you give us about balloons?
Well, one, the size is not the same. These weather balloons that we see go up from the National Weather Service or that are used for research purposes they last maybe 2 to 3 hours before they pop in the upper atmosphere. Versus this balloon that we're seeing here has obviously been transiting the United States over the past 2 or 3 days now, so it's very long lived. The size is a huge difference as well. With your standard weather balloon, it starts a few feet in diameter, and then as it goes up into the atmosphere and the higher it gets, as the pressure decreases, that balloon expands, and it might grow to, speculating here, but 12 to 18 feet in diameter. Whereas the balloon that Scotty has live streamed right here, and I see two contrails there. That balloon is much larger. The payload, I've heard speculation that it is on the order of 3 school buses wide, 3 houses wide. So it is far larger than your average weather balloon, and obviously carrying a very different payload, one that weighs much more than a weather balloon.
You know, those contrails that we've seen them here in the Carolinas earlier today too, and it's hard to know whether they're just other aircraft in the area or something else. It's atmospherically, it's been a very good day to see those contrails. But what's interesting, of course, is that we know from looking at Flight Tracker, there's no other commercial aircraft up right now. So those contrails very much. Go ahead, Scotty. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we've got some action going on up here. I've got 2 contrails. You can see right.
We lost Scotty. We're going to stand by. He'll be back with us in just a second. He said 2. I almost saw 4 there.
I think I saw 4 as well. 2 more coming in from the left.
Yeah. We're continuing to watch on Flight Tracker. Again, this is just what the government is allowing us to see, that they've got this United States Air Force plane out there. There's clearly some other things in the sky.
Here we go.
Scotty.
Yeah, so you guys can see the fighter. There's 3. I'm not sure what kind of jets they are, but there's nothing in airspace. So I'll let you.
Well, that's exactly what we were talking about right before you got kicked off. Right. There's allegedly nothing in the airspace, but there is clearly something in the airspace.
Yeah, and then the balloon's coming towards the coast, and these 3. So I'm not sure, what's happening. Looks like you can maybe start to turn around. If you look at the contrails, you can start to see some curvature.
That's something that we've seen over the past day as people have been tracking flights online, as these bigger planes circling around or near the balloon, and perhaps although those I would hazard a guess that they aren't the bigger planes. Those may be jets. We're a weather podcast.
These sound like, I don't think they were the big planes.
Okay,
and you can really see the curvature of these 2 right here.
Yeah,
looks like they're starting to turn around.
Turning around, maybe they're orbiting the balloon.
Yeah, I mean you can definitely see I'm gonna speculate what's going on, but you can definitely see they were going straight, and they've definitely. And I'm gonna try not to get hit by cars that are moving into this area, but you are circling around right now. And here's the weather. Here's the and then you can kind of see the contrails right behind it.
Okay, we'll stay with us for a moment. As
you can also see a faint there, but you can definitely see these 2 contrails right here are definitely circling.
Scotty, how far from the coast are you physically?
Okay, so here's the balloon. You can see the balloon. Right there's the beach. I don't know. 500 feet off the coast. Now, this may be still 2 or 3 miles inland, but we're pretty close to the coast.
And the balloon's approximately at 60,000 feet. It's hard to know exactly what the balloon might be over, but that at least gives us some context. We have a request, and I think this is a good one. Can you just use your finger, Scotty, and kind of point in front of your camera where that balloon is? We can kind of see it on big monitors, but I think people on phones right now, right? Of course. Okay. Okay. Thank you. You can move that back out of the way now, because of course, when you did that, then the dot disappeared because your camera was trying to focus. It is very small. And so anyone who's gone outside today to try to get a picture of it knows how small it really is in the sky. A lot of the photos you're seeing on social media do have telephoto or zoomed in. And I wish I had a way to kind of circle and pinpoint exactly where that was here. Here's a look right now at Flight Tracker. As we continue to look, this is a United States Air Force plane that is somewhere off the coast there that is publicly available to see and track. And I guess, I'm not surprised if there are other military aircraft in the sky right now that are not showing up on military trackers per se. Although let's look at this one here, Evan.
Yep.
Right? Because if Scotty would be down here in Myrtle. This particular aircraft right here from the Coast Guard is kind of orbiting in such a way that would be kind of similar to the contrails we were seeing.
It could be. With the balloon being so high,
right,
it's entirely possible that it's further away from him than we think. It can be a little deceiving when it's 60,000 feet up. But working with what we've got with information we have, I'm trying to speculate here. What maybe that balloon might be within a 80-mile radius of Myrtle Beach. Is that anybody care to speculate too? Perhaps. So it could be that plane is either supporting the fighter jets that are out there. Scotty did say it seemed like those are fighter jets, both by the sound and also, I suppose, by the speed at which they were moving and how quickly they were turning. That does appear to be a bigger one. I suppose there's support out there for those jets. Don't know exactly what that entails, but that's likely what we're seeing with that tracker and the plane you've just clicked on there as well.
Yeah, there's no way to know what any of these planes are really doing, especially since this area is used a lot for training purposes.
Yeah.
Scotty, how many contrails do you see, Scotty?
I see 3. I'm not going to really zoom in but the balloon is actually flying through one of the contrails right now. So very close to this balloon. But you can kind of see the circle in the sky for where these planes, jets, whatever you want to call them, are around this balloon. Trails and then back here. And let me try to find the balloon, and I lost it within the sky.
I see it. It's in that ray of light.
Yeah, I think Scotty's signal keeps dropping out there with us, but we can take a look at this. Let's check in with Jared Smith for a moment. He's maybe off. Yeah, a lot of these guys are on the road, all on the move, or Scotty's out at the beach. Where if you've been to the beach, there's not always a ton of cellular signal because you only got towers on the one side with you. Evan, we were talking a little bit earlier about weather balloons, and weather balloons don't last this long. At least the ones are intentionally launched by the National Weather Service here in the United States.
Correct. Yeah. So there are some of the balloons that work higher up that are stratospheric balloons, and they can last longer. We've seen balloons work up there before and travel great distances. This one, the fact that it is claimed by the Chinese, and they say that it's a meteorological balloon, and then the Pentagon says, well, we don't know. We're not in the business of speculating on politics and whatnot. But it does seem like this isn't a weather balloon, at least not your typical National Weather Service balloon. I'm not an expert on stratospheric weather balloons and how research is conducted up there, so I won't speculate too much. But there's something going on with this one that just seems to be a little bit different given the reaction from the government.
Yeah, and I think that's right. This is kind of, no one knows exactly what's happening or going to happen here, and that's not our fortitude. But once they closed the airspace, that made things kind of real interesting. We got this photo emailed to us here, and I think it's from a similar vantage point of kind of what Scotty's looking at, right? So you can kind of see the contrails of the other aircraft and the balloon being circled there. I'll take this full screen for you so you can kind of see this. This was emailed over to us by somebody watching here on YouTube with us. We appreciate that. And so it really does kind of help. Oh, he's here it is. This photo is south of Myrtle, facing north. So thank you, Luke. And so it's a similar vantage point to Scotty, right? But it kind of gives us that zoom in and that chance to circle it up. So very, very interesting indeed. Dip is asking, just joining the stream here at 2:00, why are flights grounded? So the reasoning that the FAA is giving is for security reasons. They didn't really elaborate on that, and I'm not aware of any publicly known plans or threats that would suddenly warrant this action, which has not been taken at any other point as this balloon traversed the United States. But as we look over at Flight Tracker, we can see that the eastern coast here of the Carolinas has been cleared out of everything but military aircraft. Why? Your guess is as good as mine.
You know what Luke Masters just commented, saying that it looks like it's still over land and not out over the water yet. That's important because if there were something that were going to happen, some reaction, some action from the military, it wouldn't happen over land. That's one of the few things I do feel safe speculating about. So as this balloon drifts out over the ocean, it seems like that's where they're really wanting to do something with it, whether that's just observe or engage.
Yeah.
Who knows?
There's lots of thoughts, speculations, hypotheses, and likelihoodness that they could use the ocean as a place to finally do something with this balloon without having people down below. Luke is saying, correction on the previous photo was taken from Conway, North Carolina, facing north. So again, that does actually move us a little bit further north if we were trying to figure out exactly where this was. Jared Smith, how's the traffic? Is it other people heading to the waters like you?
That's sure. It's going to be interesting to see what we can see. I saw some of the smaller contrails, but again, it's further. It's going to be way. If we're going to be able to see it, you've got to basically be on the water, and it's going to be very low on the horizon. A couple things, I've been listening to you guys, try and speculate, but not pull in on speculation, and just I suspect that one, obviously you don't harm anybody on the ground, right? That's the first most important thing. Any action on it, but to surveil it to this point. You have to assume that that's the case. I suspect that they're not going to try and destroy it. I think maybe just a couple rounds will do. Track it as it lands and then pick it up, because I think that what is that? What? Why? Why would it be logical, or is it something beyond that? So I when it goes down, you're not going to see like a huge flash or anything. I hope you do, right? I hope you do.
Let me cut in just a second. Let me cut it. The Associated Press is reporting the Biden administration is considering a plan to shoot down the balloon over the water. That is Associated Press reporting, which I don't think any of us are surprised to hear.
No, I mean, Biden said this morning he was off somewhere. I think, you know how they have the gaggle of reporters that hounds those, and that is, I need to service my transmission. That's normal. Somebody asked, hey, what's going on with this thing? What are you going to do? And as he often does, was like, we'll take care of it. And so I am not shocked at all that this is, what's being seen. Evan, to your point earlier, I mean, we did not see a shutdown of airspace. And so it just makes sense. And they've shut down everything from surface to 60,000. So, yeah, nobody's flying unless somebody unearths with that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting here. I think it's really interesting here. We got a comment from Mark Honeycutt mentioning that the flight restriction ends at 2:45, which is a great point. That gives us a time frame to be looking at. It's 2:06 right now. So sometime if they're definitively planning on acting in this period, that gives us only 39 minutes left before they do whatever they're planning. If it sounds like the Biden administration is considering shooting it down, then perhaps our Scotty Powell, who's down at Myrtle Beach, or other folks down on the coast may have a view of that, depending on how far off the coast it gets.
Scotty is preserving a little cellular power right now as we await this to get a little bit closer to coastal location. And that is good insight from Mark. As you said, Evan, that gives us a little indication of what the time frame may be.
Yeah.
It's certainly disruptive to air travelers, as the FAA has shut down 3 airports in North Carolina and South Carolina due to national security initiatives. And as Jared alluded to, Biden saying, we're going to take care of it. So we'll find out in the next 30 minutes what that means.
I do think it's good to set expectations here, though.
Go ahead, Jared.
I don't know if you can hear me, but the other thing that you got to keep in mind, too, is that they may need to let this, craft, it's going to need to a little ways before they can do anything because the winds are at least here in Charleston, we have a good onshore flow. So, in order to make they can't do it too soon. I think is the key thing to remember here, because winds are definitely coming onshore today, and I'm about 10, 15 minutes out. Get that here in a second, what that looks like.
That's super fascinating, because that means that there's definitely a meteorologist somewhere in the United States right now that is forecasting the winds all through the profile, all the way up to 60,000 feet, and predicting where they need to take down a balloon, if that's what they're going to do, and how that payload may fall through the different layers of the atmosphere and through different wind directions and whatnot. So that's super cool and applicable as a meteorology podcast. Definitely seems like they have this smothered and covered.
Another thing that I'd be here if anybody at the Weather Service has placed has sector over the Carolinas. Actually, the default 1 minute mesos in this corridor where we have the TFR. So it may be worth looking to see where 1 minute mesoscale sectors are. And then that's how we're able to catch rockets as they take off. I don't know enough to catch something like this, but could be interesting. That could be another vantage point. And you have to tilt up a big ways, but weather radars could all us to, where something like this is, because again, this is going to be hit by the, by the radar beam. It may be a pixel, it may be like a pixel or two. It's not going to be the biggest, target in the world, but it could, so there's a couple ways that I think that we could keep an eye on this. We're getting pretty close now to the, we're getting pretty close, and that's where I'm going to set up here in a minute, James. I may get back into some takeover for a minute, and I'll get back with you when I get on the beach.
That sounds like me. Thank you. We are also working on getting a what I'll say stronger connection out on the coast with Scotty Powell. And so I'm working a few technical things here. So we are coming into just a momentary of hurry up and wait as we continue to watch on Flight Tracker or the known military aircraft right now that are out over that region of the coastal Carolinas. So let me go ahead here and just pause for a second so that I can make sure I've got the right things for Scotty, as we're going to try to beam him in a different way, because obviously his connection keeps dropping a little bit. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I saw the balloon myself out my front door a little bit earlier. And I think many of you have also spotted it across the Carolinas or possibly other portions of the United States. And we are waiting. We've got Scotty Powell on the coast. Jared Smith in Charleston heading to the coast. The balloon itself somewhere about 60,000 feet up in the sky, which means that it is viewable from a very large area down on the ground. And we're going to see what happens here. We have an FAA ground stop for the next little bit. Let's bring in Evan Fisher, who can help fill us in on what he's looking at here while I try to figure out how to get this other link out to Scotty.
Yeah, sorry, I had to step away for a quick second, but we are seeing these larger planes that are supporting the military action. We're seeing those that they're circling off the coast. There's one here you can see on the screen circling off the coast of northeast South Carolina. There's also a couple other ones that are further north over eastern North Carolina. It seems like the balloon, from my understanding, is still inland somewhere in the vicinity of Conway, approaching Myrtle Beach. But it won't be too much longer before it moves out over open water. Just to do a quick summary for anyone who's just now joining us, we are tracking this balloon. We've got Scotty Powell out in Myrtle Beach, who is not currently live with us, but has been hopping in and out with views of the balloon from the beach. He's been watching jets as they circle around this balloon, 2 or 3 of them, which has been a very interesting perspective. Jared Smith down in Charleston, heading out towards the coast, I believe Isle of Palms heading out that way. And James and myself here in the interior Carolinas, James in Charlotte, myself in Asheville, just trying to cover this, keep you updated. If you're not familiar with the Carolina Weather Group, we're a meteorology podcast, video-based and also audio, but we also cover all big STEM events in the Carolinas, and this is certainly a STEM event in my book.
It certainly became one, especially once they started closing airspace down, as we've been trying to track this thing moving across the the country. What a very weird situation this is.
It has been a very unusual couple of days because there's been so much speculation of, is this dangerous? Is it not? Do I need to worry about this? And while we don't have those answers for you, and you're welcome to speculate on your own, it certainly has been. Maybe I'm a little weird for saying this, but I was excited when I saw it earlier. It's like, oh wow, this is the balloon that everyone's been talking about, and it is so neat to be able to, as we mentioned earlier, just contribute to the saga by posting a picture of the balloon that we saw, and we see that going on down in Myrtle Beach, people posting pictures and keeping us updated. Hopefully, somebody's got a real tight telephoto lens zoomed in on that balloon, and they're going to record exactly what happens to it over the next 45 minutes.
It definitely became a bit of a weird weather event. We track lots of space launches and things here, but this is a first.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a first, and I suspect it'll be a last. I don't see us doing too many more special live coverages of Chinese balloons of some sort of origin.
I hope not. No. Yeah. All right, we got Scotty Powell back. Scotty, I do have a Zoom link ready for you, but while we got you here on Restream, go ahead and tell us what you got there in Myrtle.
So, A, I'm trying to conserve a little bit of battery. I didn't bring my charger with me, but B, moon is very close to getting over the coast now. So, I don't know if you guys can pick it up or not, but there's at least 3 circling. In fact, I don't know if you guys can see the contrails back there, but they're making their time, and they've been doing this for probably the last 15-20 minutes. They'll get close to the and then they'll circle back around, maybe I don't know, I'm not good at nautical miles, but maybe back to Oregon, and then make another run towards the coast. So but this below with the hotels right now here on the coast, so it's over the ocean right now, so it is literally over my head right now, but there you can see it. Hopefully, there we go.
Scotty, from our perspective, we've got you on one of the smaller screens. There's something glimmering in the middle. Is that the balloon?
Yeah, I'm trying to zoom in as much as I can.
Oh yeah, yep, we see it now that it's full screen. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the balloon, and again, it's right over these hotels. It is it's getting close to being over the ocean, and you can see that, or not fighter jets, 2 jets right there, and there's a third one about to make another run at the coast, but it is getting very close to being over water minutes or so.
I think Jared Smith set our expectations perfectly earlier in that if they do end up deciding to move forward with a takedown of this balloon, whatever that entails, as we've seen reports that the Biden administration is considering shooting it down, we should expect that it's not going to be a glorious, surprising ball of flame falling out of the sky. This will not appear that way. However they take it down, whether that's gentle, whether they're able to grab it or let it down softly, or even just drop the whole thing, I doubt there'll be many flames involved. So just temper your expectations here. It'll be neat to watch what happens, but it won't be a fireball. Jared, what are you doing? Where are you heading?
I am trying to get onto the beach. My usual there is closed for renovation. So I think I have another way on, working on that now. I'll see if I can't get a look at one of the weather stations here. I'm going to be walking Weather Flow, Isle of Palms Pier weather station is. Yeah, that's a pretty good wind here. That's, I don't know, Chinese like space dust in my eye, but it sounds like I'm gonna shit. What's what? Hopefully, I don't have to turn all the way back around. Does not look like I will have to do that. Thank goodness. There was a Davis station out here that I don't think is out here anymore. It was at the park, but again, they've got everything closed down here for renovations. Yeah, they got that all sealed off. Nothing there. One thing that we are noticing here is again, I mentioned these. I'm not sure how I can get on that pier, actually. That would be ideal. And that's the way. Let me see. I don't know if that's a private. Yeah, that's a private pier because there's people out here, but it's not quite the obviously not as busy.
And we'll keep a close eye on this over here the next few minutes. Evan, I think you got me over in our new Zoom connection.
Yes, just you. Can't hear anybody else.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully we're gonna have Scotty and Jared hop over.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Scotty and Jared hop over to our Zoom.
The last thing I saw there, hopefully I'm not stepping on anybody who's in the other link. One of the last things I saw there was Scotty's view of the contrails of those jets streaming through the sky. That's a pretty dramatic sight, and not one that perhaps you see every day. I know the coast is not familiar with military activity, since there's lots of training that goes on off the coast, but it's not too often that you see that training applied to real life and so close to the home front. So I'm sure this is a pretty dramatic event for folks along the South Carolina, North Carolina coast, particularly from Myrtle Beach to Wilmington.
Yeah, I can't think of anything quite like this that we've ever had before. Mm-hmm. And as you said a little while ago, hopefully we don't see anything quite like this ever again, because this is very peculiar. Jared Smith is back with us. Jared, you were working your way towards the pier.
Yeah, and I can't get up there. It's a private pier. I'll get shot probably. So we're just not going to do that. But let me see if I can get this thing to flip around. There we go. Here's a look. Just kind of looking northeast here. You guys general idea of what you're seeing. Actually, I'll flip it landscape so you can see that a little bit better. You see typical contrails. Again, we've got that's relatively straightforward for this point in the year. I mean, look at the winds though. I mean, you probably see the you definitely have this kind of a northeasterly component helping to drive the waves up a little bit. But again, that's probably why they're going to take some time. Now, I can't see anything. I'll just, want to just be honest about this, is that I'm not sure what I'm going to see from down here. It is traveling at 60,000 feet, but I think it's just too far to the north to be able to see from Charleston reliably. So if you're looking from Charleston, if you're trying to look for it, it's going to be a little bit complicated. And there's also some cloud cover just offshore that might be reducing visibility a little bit. That might make it even tougher to see. So again, I've got eyes. I've got eyes down there. I thought earlier I saw some of those contrails that Scotty was talking about. I may have seen them when I was going over one of the bridges. Obviously, it was not safe for me to make any changes at that point to the camera. But from here, not a lot. I will say this, though, it is pretty eerily quiet. I'm pointing towards the airport, and it is, it's pretty dead. We usually have
aircraft pretty commonly, taking off, heading out. Charleston Air Force Base is here. The Charleston Air Force Base shares with it shares with the international airport. They share runways. So yeah, typically, you see a lot more air traffic at this point, but again, that TFR is in effect, and I don't know if it's going to be extended. I guess it depends on how far we get, but so far keeping an eye out, just trying to see something. But really, guys, I'm not. I guess hopeful is not the word to use here. I don't know how hopeful I am to see something.
That's okay. Every eyeball counts. We'll keep an eye on it, Jared, and we're waiting for Scotty to come back up. We know he's also trying to conserve battery power, and we'll advise the same thing to you, Jared. And for folks who are just joining us, the sector remains clear of any sort of commercial flights aside from military aircraft, as the balloon is probably somewhere, to the best of our knowledge, between Myrtle Beach and Wilmington. We know that Scotty is there in Myrtle Beach. And it was to his north, but again, it's at 60,000 feet. So how to triangulate where that might be actually down on the ground is a bit of a mathematical equation, but we'll keeping an eye here. This is a bit of a change from what it has been, whereas up until now, there hasn't been any disruption to airspace, but we do have that now as we are continuing to watch. We do have a comment that the ground stop maybe got extended until 3:30. So let's see. We'll take a look at that here and see if we can confirm that. But the FAA did tweet a little while ago. And this is about the time we came on here to start streaming, knowing that something peculiar was going on. And you can see, when they tweeted that they were pausing departures and arrivals to Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, and Charleston due to the Department of Defense in a national security effort. Very, very unusual language. And some of those flights did get diverted, right? So as of 12 minutes ago, they extended what was a ground stop to a complete closure of the airspace, which I would say, although that's a 12-minute-old tweet, we had kind of already figured that out, I think, based on looking at flight tracking data, that there were no aircraft in that space, because the difference would be a ground stop means no takeoffs, no departures from those airports, but other flights, say from, I don't know, Tallahassee to New York, could still fly over. Well, now they have to completely avoid that airspace, which is what we've been seeing already. So this is clearly still very ongoing as they continue to track this balloon.
It's interesting. Social media is a powerful thing, a powerful tool for tracking these balloons, and obviously thousands of people across the Carolina coast are watching this balloon transit off the coast at the moment. We also have these tools like Flight Tracker that can track not only the absence of commercial flights, but also the presence of military flights. There's some speculation that a couple of them are, this is from our buddy Tony Rice, actually, who's an expert on all things space. But he's talking about the fact that there's a refueler, U.S. Air Force refueler, and another a Black Hawk and some other USCG transport, and they don't appear to be heading off the coast anymore. They appear to be heading home. Not exactly sure what that entails, but we're going to keep digging. So if you hear some awkward silences, we're just looking for information, just like y'all, and we're going to share it with you as we get it.
So the ground stops have, in fact, been extended until 3:30. They were originally, I think, 2:45, and this will go now until 3:30. They're buying themselves, I think, a little bit more time here to keep an eye on whatever this situation may be.
Yep.
There's lots of information out there. Some of it is very political, and so we are trying to just give you the facts as we know them in a very unusual situation. We did just get this tweet sent to us, and we appreciate this very much. And those are some good-looking guys down there in the picture at the bottom of the screen of the actual restriction area. So you can, and I think this is going to be exactly what they are diverting around, right? From Wilmington to Charleston through Myrtle Beach and out to sea. You can see how far out to sea that does extend. So we appreciate that tweet. Thank you for sharing that screenshot with us. And that's kind of a perfect example of why the Carolina Weather Group is tracking a balloon. It's this weird intersection of winds in the atmosphere and aeronautics that brings out the nerds in us as we're keeping an eye on this.
Yeah, we can only tell you what we know. We don't have the training, and we don't have any military training. We're not Pentagon officials, so we're working with similar information.
I have no sources in the Pentagon.
We don't know about Jared.
Top Gun 4 times. I can tell
Top
you
Gun.
that what they're going to do is they're going to send F-18s up over a mountain, pulling 10 Gs, bending the airframe, and then Tom Cruise is going to be the hero.
Tom Cruise.
No spoilers. No spoilers. This
Yeah.
will not be Top Gun, at least as far as we know. There will be no recording. I doubt that. I mean, to be honest, I don't know how much we'll ever know aside from what the public sees from the coast. I'm sure we'll have some press release from the government, but it is totally within their right to not tell us what ended up happening. So it'll be interesting to see what goes down over the next couple of days and how much information we really get on this balloon that has captivated America for the past 2 or 3 days.
See what goes down, no pun intended. I'll tell you from here at Isle of Palms, it's still just, it's just honestly, it's a horrible day to go to the beach. It's just terrible out here. I don't know how people are out here right now. It is cold. It is just, gross.
Oh, Scotty's got a great view of it right now.
Scotty, which way is the horizon here? Is your phone pointed sideways?
No, it's pointed straight up in the air. It's like literally over my head right now.
Overhead Myrtle Beach.
That explains my confusion.
Yeah, it is literally over my head, and I am standing on the sand. So, it's just drifting. Did
you bring a helmet?
Do I?
Did you bring a helmet?
I did not bring a helmet. No.
Okay.
Maybe I should, but I'm trying to get it zoomed in so you guys can see it. There it is. Okay, there it is.
Oh, great view.
Wow. It almost looks like the moon in this particular.
Yeah, and I mean, the contrails, there's at least 3 jets flying here. I'm not a jet expert, but they sound military.
I saw Andrew Dockery tweet that they were F-16s. That's interesting to me because I don't know if they can get that. See, the other thing is that if this thing's at 60,000 feet, they're essentially have to I'm thinking about what the maneuver would look like, right? And now I'm sure we have aircraft that can get that.
I'm not good at depth perception, but it definitely doesn't look like 60,000 feet.
Well, yeah.
I've seen airplanes higher than what it is right now.
I will say it's deceiving because the size of the balloon is much larger than we think it is. So we think the balloon's smaller, so we think it's lower in the atmosphere. One giveaway that I had earlier is that when I was watching it in Western North Carolina, an commercial airliner flew by and the balloon actually the contrail from the airliner drifted in front of the balloon, meaning that the balloon was higher than the contrail. So that balloon it's definitely higher than cruising altitude, which is 30,000 feet. Because it's up where it is, I don't see much reason for it to come down into the troposphere. If it is hanging up there in the stratosphere, we'll see. I'm not sure.
There's the little jet. He's just chilling out. And there's the balloon.
So James, you said the ground stop was, or the flight restriction was extended to 3:30. Is that correct?
That's correct. So anything that's in the sky right now is either the balloon itself or military.
Including all these contrails, because this has been in effect long enough now that all those contrails you've seen up in the sky should all be military from traffic over the last 15 minutes or so.
I would think the same, right? Anything else that was residual has now been blown and dispersed.
I can't verify with Jared. It is a brutally terrible day to be at the beach. It is cold, windy, nasty, but it is sunny. So there you go.
How
I'm
many
glad
people
the
are out
sun's
there?
I'm glad we're not wedged in at least. Well, I mean, technically we are, but it's just not that kind of cold air damming. But I'm very glad that we're not. I mean, if we were wedged in, we wouldn't be doing any of this because we wouldn't be able to see anything. So, but yeah, I mean, I definitely see some. In the distance, I see contrails. I see those things. But again, if you're watching from Charleston, I'm just going to tell you now, save yourself the disappointment. Tell your friends, turn on the Carolina Weather Group, stay inside, and don't do what I'm doing. It's cold. I can't feel my hands. It's just going to be too far off the horizon, I think, to see anything really good here. So again, keep an eye on Scotty. Has absolutely got Myrtle Beach. Scotty, you have a front row seat to this thing, I think.
Okay, so you guys see I'm on the sand.
Sure enough.
And let me find the balloon. There's the balloon. So it has passed me.
So we suspect that they'll give it some space. It'll get out over the water because there are some strong winds to deal with down near the surface. They won't want it blowing towards the coast as it falls, if it were to fall and be taken down in that manner.
But you can see there's some people out here. I mean, I've seen
Are they
more
also
people.
watching?
A lot of people. Yeah, all these people are watching. A lot of people have said it's just too cold, but some of us are braving it out. I mean, it's my hands are like ice cubes right now. But you don't get to see this every day, so
Yeah, we appreciate your dedication for sure.
Yes. I just hope my phone battery can stay alive.
Well, as long as we got you, we're thankful for it. I know we do have a lot of people tuning in from across the Carolinas and across the country. Just to give everyone a quick status update, what we're working with. It's 2:35 p.m. On February the 4th, a Saturday, and we are following perhaps the end of the Chinese balloon surveillance, meteorological, one of those types. We're following the end of that saga. It's been traveling across the United States for the past 3 days, and it is now, you're watching this live as the balloon exits over and transits over into the Atlantic. Now it's over the Atlantic, no longer over land. And we've heard for the past few days that perhaps the government can't take action because they're concerned about where a payload may fall if the balloon were to be disinflated. I saw someone use that word earlier. I don't know if it's a real one, but if that balloon were to be dropped, they don't know exactly where that payload would land. Deflated, yes. Yeah, that's way better than disinflated. I'll have to remember who used that one earlier. Anyways.
I will say this. The jets that have been circling have went back inland, and it looks like they're making a turn again. So maybe this is a practice run, or maybe it's the real thing. I don't know, but they are circling inland as I look at them right now, and they are headed back this way.
So we do have a flight restriction in effect right now for Eastern Carolinas. What is it? Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington. Those airports have a ground stop. There's no commercial traffic moving through this airspace that you see live streamed right here, right now. So any contrails, any flights, any planes that you see come through are entirely military. We know there are some support planes out there for some of the jets, we presume. There's also jets out there that have been scrambled. We know that they're F-16s. We've heard that from a couple of very smart aviation people. And while we are more weather people, this is certainly still in our STEM sphere. So we're just doing as much as we can to cover this for you. If you're in the Carolinas or wherever you are, we hope that you're able to find this a little interesting.
Hey, Evan, I don't mean to cut you off. So here's my plan. My phone just dropped to 20%. I'm going to log off for just a second so I can save some battery. And if I see anything, I'll jump right back on.
Roger that. Thanks, Scotty. We do have Jared Smith down in Charleston. Unfortunately, he is without a view and still braving the cold and the blowing sand. Jared, what's your experience been like in the Charleston area?
I mean, again, I think the thing that's most notable, there's two things here. And again, we go back to, you talked about why is the Carolina Weather Group talking about this? This is a beautiful demonstration of the confluence of meteorology, military planning, things like that. There's a lot to it, and meteorologists have always played a critical role in national security and warfare and things like that. And again, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said before, I've seen Top Gun a bajillion times. But what we do know is that meteorology has played a huge part of it. Yesterday, probably saw all sorts of high split spaghetti tracks. People literally doing spaghetti tracks for the balloon. It's hilarious. There were some concerns that there was some speculation that it could make it down here. Looks like now Myrtle Beach is going to be where it exits the United States. But again, we've been able to use the giant. So the reason why we're even talking about this is the giant trough that's on that's in the east. That's along the East Coast right now. Huge trough of low pressure has taken this thing all the way down through the mid-south and is now exiting here. And that trough, that's the same trough that's made it extraordinarily cold. Places like New York City, Boston, where they're down to -4 up there, and that whole thing, everything is interconnected. And so that is a big reason why we're here. Is that meteorologically speaking, this is very, very, very interesting. So
It is.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Now, somebody just said that they saw a jet cruising high altitude over the airport moving east. And so, again, that doesn't surprise me. It's probably ADS-B is very likely. You likely have, if you think about what it takes to support a mission like this, one, fighter jets, tiny fuel tanks. So they probably have, there's certainly has been reports and certainly likely there's some refueling stuff going, they're going to have to be up there to refuel these guys.
Right.
This is a slow moving balloon. It's only moving with the atmosphere. It's only moving with the air currents. So again, it's going to take a while before this thing is safe enough. Now, I'm at the Isle of Palms Pier, and one of our panelists, Shay Gibson. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. I don't know if Zoom lets me zoom. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but I definitely. Whoa! All right, yeah, definitely not stepping in the water. Tide's starting to come in a little bit, but I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this.
We've got it. We see it.
You see the weather station there?
Yep.
So I got the weather station. This is the weather flow weather station, the Isle of Palms Pier. We talk about this a lot during storm coverage. It's rare that you actually get to see it. Well, we're seeing it here, and you can see that wind is blowing in very hard.
All right, we need to go back over to Scotty Powell for a moment. Joining us back here on the call. Scotty's audio is connecting.
Guys, it's gone. It's gone. It's gone.
What do you mean it's gone?
They just shot it out. It is
Okay.
completely gone.
Is that what we're seeing there? And
I just heard 2 rockets, missiles hit, and it's gone. There's what's left of it.
Oh, wow.
Whatever. There's a small thing falling out of the sky right now, but 2 missiles just hit it. It's gone.
All right. Yeah, that's I'm surprised they use missiles.
It sounded like very loud gunshots, and then boom.
That would that'd be sonic boom from the missiles. All right, so they've taken it out. I'm looking in that direction to see if I can't. And again, as I suspected, we're not seeing much. But yeah, Scotty, that's big. That's
so,
Yeah,
Scotty,
it's gone. I wish I'm trying to, for whatever reason, I can't get my phone zoomed in, but there is something, I don't know, maybe it's the payload, the solar panels or what, but it is falling to the ground. But just heard bangs right before, and the balloon's gone.
that thing that we're seeing descend down the middle of the screen that's getting a little bit bright, is that the payload falling?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. What you see, yes.
Interesting. So the balloon has been popped. This payload, this large payload, is now falling, free falling through the atmosphere towards the ocean. Fascinating. Thank you, Scotty.
Okay, so that would have been about 2:40 here on this Saturday, February the 4th. This is a live look off the coast of Myrtle Beach. In the few moments where Scotty went to go try to recharge his battery here, we've been tracking the so-called Chinese surveillance balloon has been moving across the United States the last couple of days. But in the last couple of minutes, Scotty is telling us here that he observed and heard the sound of what could have been those U.S. government military aircraft taking some sort of intervention, some sort of action against this balloon, which has been free floating across the United States for several days now. And we are watching as the apparatus that was once floating at 60,000 feet slowly descends. Those contrails you see are military aircraft, because a reminder that the FAA has closed the airspace here across portions of the Carolina coast until at least 3:30 in anticipation of doing exactly what it appears they just did.
Yeah, I'll just my phone's about to die, but it's I heard boom, and then about 10-20 seconds later another one, and all that's left is this payload that is falling now. I can't see how that far out in the distance, but I'm sure there's probably some kind of marine craft that's out there to recover this. But man, they got it. It was really interesting to hear and see, and you knew by the boom that's what happened, and then the balloon was gone.
Looking at Flight Tracker, there is nothing that we can see off the coast of Myrtle Beach that would give us any sort of indication of where they think this might come down or where the military has some of these jets. We do see other Air Force jets right now, other Air Force planes off the coast of Charleston, off the coast of Wilmington, but we can't see anything on Flight Tracker off the coast of Myrtle Beach other than what Scotty is showing us here in the last few moments of his phone working.
Yeah,
Scotty.
and all that there's just this payload, whatever it is, it's slowly falling to the ground, but very interesting. I mean, and the military jets are gone. They're out of here. You can see one flying away right there. But yeah, they're done. So that was very interesting.
And so it's decided to become a recovery operation now. So I am leaving the beach right now. I think I did retweet a couple photos. Somebody apparently did see the balloon very, very faintly. I mean, you had to really, really be looking for it. About an hour ago, they were able to see it from downtown Charleston. It was a little dot, low on the horizon. But yeah, no, didn't see any evidence of that from here. Didn't see anything from here. Again, I think I had some of the contrails that may have actually kind of muted it out from here, but Scotty definitely had the front row seat. So I'm glad we were here for that. And now we find out what it is.
I imagine, without any sort of visual or with any sort of plan announced from the United States government, what the mental image is in my head is what SpaceX kind of does, or what NASA kind of does when they're trying to bring in a spacecraft back from space. In that maybe it splashes down into the water and then you go in and you scoop it up, or maybe you try to do the SpaceX thing and you maneuver underneath it, but that would probably be very difficult with an object that is now free falling. Most likely, well, I'm completely speculating and that's not what I want to do, but without any maneuverability, because when SpaceX lands on something, they are aiming it. So we don't have any eyeballs off the coast of the United States here. But we are awaiting to see at least when the FAA will reopen the airspace, which has been closed now across portions of South Carolina and North Carolina for more than an hour in anticipation of the U.S. government taking some sort of action, as they just did just moments ago. And this white dot seen across the Carolinas today by many, including our Evan Fisher, who's going to be leaving our coverage in a moment. But Evan, tell us again what that was like when you saw that dot this morning.
It was surprising. Our original guess was that the balloon was going to move over western North Carolina between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And we calculated that using some weather models. And as we all know, models aren't perfect. And sure enough, that prediction wasn't perfect. It did move over western North Carolina, but it wasn't until 8 to 9:30 a.m., roughly in that window. So it was surprising to step outside in full daylight and see this balloon 3 hours after it was supposed to pass by. And that was kind of those are the first sightings of the day. The first sightings happened here in Asheville, and then it quickly progressed east. People saw it in Rutherfordton, Gastonia, Charlotte, all the way east now to the coast, and where several people have now watched it meet its demise. So it's been a long story throughout the day. It's been a long haul for news agencies and also just for folks following along on social media, and all of us here in the Carolina Weather Group. We've been watching closely all day, and it's an interesting end to this story. Perhaps this isn't exactly how I would have thought it would have gone down even 2 hours ago. I would not have guessed that they would shoot it down so close to the coast. But here we are. What an end.
Carolina Weather Group's Evan Fisher in Asheville, who saw the balloon himself earlier today. Thanks for joining our coverage. Evan, we know you have to run. Looking at the tweet here from Scotty Powell, Carolina Weather Group panelist in Myrtle Beach, again describing that he heard 2 booms before the balloon began to descend from the sky. There was not, for clarification purposes, any sort of explosion or fire seen from this thing. Scotty just simply says he heard 2 booms, and then what was once the white dot began to fall from the sky. And that's kind of what we're seeing here on his tweet. He used up the last of his battery just to confirm for us what he saw there after watching for more than an hour as the balloon moved overhead. He was observing it like so many of us others have observed it as a small white dot in the sky. But the big difference coming this afternoon after the FAA closed down airspace at airports including Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, and Charleston in anticipation. And now we're getting word, we still have Jared Smith with us, who's in Charleston. Jared, the FAA is now saying that airspace may not open until as late as 5:15.
It makes sense. You got to make sure that everything around it is safe. Their FAA is not going to, they're going to play this as conservatively as possible. I'm not surprised. That's just the way this is going to go. It's going to take a while for that thing to get down. I mean, if you think about it, and they don't know, and again, it's a game of where does it land? Where does it come down? And I don't think that's something that we're going to be able to watch from here at this point, which is why I'm leaving the beach now. I was looking, I was trying to look a little bit more northeast. I just really there's clear skies at this point. Some, still some evidence of some contrails and everything there, but really not seeing much. And I suspect now that's going to be done out of an abundance of caution while they figure out where this thing is going to land. There's going to need to be recovery operations done. They're going to need that airspace for a while longer.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're going to be able to see it from here, guys. Definitely. I hope Scotty can get his phone charged again soon, and we could maybe James will the next round of YouTube or Patreon money. Sign up patreon.com/Carolina Weather Group. Send us a super chat if you want Scotty's battery to last for the next Chinese spy balloon. Wow. You send us some money and we'll get him a charging brick. But
yeah, we'll try that. Let's take a look at this here, Jared, as we welcome in some viewers on WCNC Plus. We're looking at flight tracker here. The United States government in the last couple of minutes appears to have taken some action against the so-called surveillance balloon from China. More than an hour ago, the FAA closing airspace from Charleston through Wilmington along the North Carolina and South Carolina coast. That is still currently empty of all commercial flights, as the military has clearly conducted some sort of action, some sort of operation against this balloon. We had the Carolina Weather Group Scotty Powell on with us just moments ago, just moments after that action was taken. He is now working to recharge his battery to hopefully follow up with us, but you can see that he saw what was the descending of that balloon and whatever that balloon may have been carrying. He heard 2 booms before that descent began from what was an approximately 60,000 feet up in the atmosphere. And those contrails you see are presumably military aircraft. The airspace is closed to everything else. And now we just wait to see when the airspace might reopen up, when the government comes out to update us on what it is that may have transpired here and what this balloon may have been carrying. And all of that may not come immediately. It's probably going to take this thing a little while, Jared, I would imagine, given winds and the like, to actually complete that free fall from 60,000 feet.
Yeah, I need to probably it's kind of funny, James. I've actually got my laptop with me in the car. Let me see if I can give me a minute. I might see if I can't get tethered up and
Okay.
see if I can get a current look at what the weather models look like, because again, my understanding, just I haven't looked at a chart in a few hours, but knowing at the surface here we have a shallow layer of cold air, cold advection from the northeast. Very strong northeasterly winds, as you can hear from me here. And I'm off the beach now, but it was very cold out there, as you can imagine. But that being said, atmosphere is a pancake. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of levels, and I suspect that the winds are going to be moving more. We're at the base of that trough down here in South Carolina, so we're going to be having more of that wind blowing offshore. So, and then it's going to reach a layer where it's going to probably track a little bit more towards the coast before all is said and done. But yeah, I'm going to get in my car here, and yeah, I'm going to get a look at this and see what I can see. Looking from Charleston again, for those of you who have been watching, I've been on the beach here for the past 30 minutes or so, and again, welcome into our new audience. For those of us in Charleston, there may have been a sighting about an hour ago from downtown, very, very faint, but we can't see anything here. We could see the contrails from the aircraft again. I didn't hear anything. Whatever boom happened, whatever that was, didn't make it here. Didn't hear anything of consequence. And yeah, it's just a blue sky day with some low clouds, and that's about it. But yeah, I'm gonna check this out, see if I can see what I can see in the old MacBook, and see if we can't get you guys a little better fix on where this is ultimately going to end up. This would have been a better day to have the iPad, but it is what it is. Let's see what kind of network I can find out here.
Yeah, we'll let you work on that. That's Jared Smith of the Carolina Weather Group in Charleston, South Carolina, one of the areas where the airspace remains closed following U.S. military intervention.
James, the ground stop is extended, but the restricted airspace has expired.
Okay.
So commercial aircraft can now transit the airspace again, but the ground stop is continuing. So it's just the ground stop. So there's going to be no departures, and that makes sense. You're not going to have any departures from Charleston and there, but the ground stop is now, yeah, as you mentioned before, the ground stop is continuing until 5:15.
We're looking at a flight tracking website here, and you can see a U.S. military aircraft currently out over the water, this one from the Air Force. Right now, commercial planes have not resumed any of their pathing over the coast. That could change, as Jared just mentioned. Those things do take time to kind of take effect. And what would seem plausible is that the reason you don't want the reason you would keep the ground stop is you don't want planes taking off or landing at those lower altitudes, traversing on an angle, coming up or down on descent or ascent, as this debris from the balloon comes down to the surface. But some of those cruising commercial flights at higher altitudes, for instance, if we know that the balloon is now theoretically less than 30,000 feet, you might be able to continue flying commercial aircraft over that descent. We don't know what height the balloon is at right now, but we can look at Flight Tracker and try to infer some things that might be going on at this point as we await updates from the government, the FAA, and other sources here.
This is irresponsible speculation.
Oh, okay.
I think I have it on radar.
No speculation on WCNC.
No, I think I have it on radar.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that seems plausible because that would be picking up any sort of debris in the atmosphere, right? You see rain, you see snow, but we also know that radars are sophisticated enough to pick up objects such as trees.
Yeah, I have
debris.
it on radar.
Okay. Yeah. Are you able to screen share that or guide me towards that?
Yeah. So if you pull up the Charleston radar, pull up radar scope here. What I'll do is
I have radar scope up.
yeah, pull up radar scope here. And I'm going to do this for our folks here, but you can see,
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, right here. This is it. That's it.
You think it's this? It looks like rain, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
radars show.
That's and the correlation coefficient is clearly not meteorological. That's very low correlation coefficient. Typically, you see us talk about this product when we're tracking tornado debris, but in this particular case, this is absolutely debris. This is this is very much, this is a balloon.
Can you talk about this for just a second? I want to make a quick phone call, Jared.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm going to flip this back around here. Oh, okay. Now I can actually see what I'm showing you. Again, unfortunately, I don't have a good way to put myself in the frame here, but weather radar is looking up. The way weather radar works is that it beams out and the beam spreads out and it goes up with time. And in this particular case, one thing we can do, let me do, let me send that note here real quick. So one thing I'm able to find here on the radar is that if I just step back a frame, let me see if I can step back a frame. Yeah, step back a frame. You can see it starts to come into position here. This is 244, 252 right here. So I only have it on a couple frames, but you can see it. That low correlation coefficient, those blues, those grays there, that means it's not meteorological. The targets that are in there are not uniform. Very light reflectivity. Again, this is a relatively small object. It's not going to reflect all that much. But again, this is now suggesting that the balloon is probably at, if I had to guess, about 18,000 feet based off of the radar. So again, it is descending right now. So we have a fix. It looks like we have a fix of this on radar data, James, and yeah, I think that this is at about 18,000 feet right now, based off of what we're seeing off of KCLX. It'll be interesting to see off of.
That's not it.
Yeah, that's not it. That's me texting people with. But that's but this is about 18,000 feet. Yeah.
All right. Let's keep the text messages from popping up as we're looking at your screen, please.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm gonna. The next thing I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna put this back in the.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this back in the container if you want to pull radar scope. I would recommend looking from two sources.
My phone call was successful because joining us here momentarily via Zoom is WCNC Charlotte Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, who I saw earlier in the day, and I know saw this in his own backyard. And Brad, we'll pull up some of your video here in just a moment. But I don't know, Brad, if you're able to do a screen share on your side from a radar source of your choosing. But I know Jared was just trying to show us from the Charleston radar or the Wilmington radar what seems to be radar indication of this balloon. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so can you see that image right there?
Yes, we see it. Go ahead.
So I actually pulled up the Wilmington radar. And what's interesting here is I'm looking at GR analyst here, and you can see there is a debris signature on the radar. But what I think is really fascinating is when you look at the cross section here. So I'm going to pull up a cross section. Let me see if I can get the right cross section here. And you can actually see the altitude where it starts coming back down. So let me do a couple things here. Let's see if I can't get it to pop up. We'll go in a little bit closer here and try to do a little cross section. But what I thought was interesting was you can actually see the basically the debris coming back down to the ground somewhere right in there. So about 20,000 feet is where I started to see on the radar begin to fall to the ground, but it's clearly pretty far offshore. When you see the videos, guys, you see it looks like it's right over Myrtle Beach, but just looking at where the radar signature in the debris field, it is really well offshore. So it does appear that the Air Force at least waited till this thing was really far removed from land. And the video is pretty amazing. This is going to be one of the most well-documented looks like a missile strikes that I have seen. Initially, I thought, man, maybe they're going to use some kind of, kinetic weapon of some kind that would be like, some kind of machine gun or some kind of a firing device like that. But you can clearly see from the fighter jet that it launched a missile, because you can see the contrail and the vapor trail from the missile as it was launched. And then you see the balloon deflate and then start coming back down to the ground. A lot of debris, though, honestly, when you see the video and looking at the radar imagery, that's a lot of debris for a balloon. So kind of shows you how big that thing actually was and how much was attached to it.
I think a lot of people probably want to know exactly what was attached to that, and we may start to get some of those answers here in a little bit. Brad Panovich joining us here, giving us some breakdown of the radar signature, because as Brad mentioned, this is so far off the coast.
Yeah,
we're no longer really getting a lot of eyeballs on this. There is, of course, some video like we've been showing you from our own Scotty Powell in Myrtle Beach, who did see and hear it when the United States government decided to take some action on this just a short time ago. And Scotty was telling us he heard two booms and then watched that white dot start to descend from the sky, where the radar that Brad was just showing us allows us to kind of get at least a little bit of an update here on at what level in the atmosphere this is. Because right before you joined us too, Brad, we were talking about how the airspace was cleared and the ground stop was initiated, as this is now continuing to descend and they're trying to keep commercial aircraft away at a safe distance.
Yeah, just looking at like where the signature showed up was around 20,000 feet. So that's, this obviously happened much higher than that, but the debris didn't show up until the radar actually hit it. What's interesting too, and from the video and looking at some of the radar signature, it looks like the Air Force purposely hit the balloon part and not the payload part, because you see the balloon kind of deflate, like the missile went through the balloon and deflated, and whatever was attached to it's falling straight down to the ground, with the remnants of the balloon almost acting like a streamer, or almost acting like some kind of parachute to slow down the descent. So whatever the payload was is likely, if it survives impact with the water surfaces, it wasn't completely destroyed. So I think that was on purpose, guys, to kind of save whatever payload was attached to it. And if you look at some of the ship tracking, there are several military, Navy, Coast Guard ships in this vicinity, clearly to recover whatever makes it to the water surface.
Yeah, we're continuing to look as well at Flight Tracker to see what we can infer on whether or not it has descended to a safe level. Still not seeing commercial aircraft returning to any sort of really normal operations there. But I'll also say I'm no longer seeing a lot of the military aircraft that we were seeing on Flight Tracker earlier. Now,
I was just going to say there's a stratotanker, which is basically the air refueling for those fighter jets. It was circling off Myrtle Beach. It is now, looks like it's returning to base. So that's a sign that whatever they're doing in the air is pretty much done. I would expect we'll probably start to see some helicopters maybe heading in that area to help for the search for the debris. But yeah, you're right. The fighter jets and the tanker, which was refueling those fighter jets, I assume they're F-14s. I didn't get a really good look at them from where, but they looked like maybe they could have been F-14s flying initially.
The report is that they were F-22A Raptors.
Oh, wow.
They were Raptors, and it may have been, and Bill Walsh at Channel 5 speculates that it may be the first air-to-air kill ever for the F-22A.
Yeah, that's a pretty newer, that's a very modern aircraft there. So that is really interesting. Maybe, Jared, maybe it was the type of weapon that aircraft has that they wanted to use to be extra safe. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised they used a missile.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what exactly they shot, because I'm with you, because I thought it was just going to be a couple tracer rounds and then you just call it a day. But I think the other thing too, the complicating factor is the altitude, 60,000 feet. You think of the service ceiling of some of these aircraft, you don't get that high, which is probably one, why you needed a 22, and two, why you probably needed to fire a missile, because I suspect that, it's just interesting. I wonder, God, this is going to be fascinating. And these things we may never know. But yeah, I mean, that would make sense that would happen. But yeah, no, I've still got it. Yeah, I've still got it on radar here. I've, watching it drift, and you can definitely see that it's definitely a debris field that is starting to shear out a little bit too. You're starting to see, it's come from a very tight, a very tight looking signature to something that's a little bit more elongated.
Yeah, I don't know what type of balloon this was. Most of the Weather Service balloons are latex, so this obviously wasn't a latex balloon. Probably it was some other type of material. But when it was impacted by the missile or whatever weapon they used, it looked like it shredded. There was tons of pieces that were coming off of it, and what looked like smoke. It really wasn't smoke. It was whatever the debris material of the balloon envelope. And I think you got a really good idea how big that is. At altitude, that thing is probably the size of a bus. It was a huge balloon.
Yeah, they were saying 3 buses.
That is not small.
Yeah, that's why they didn't take it down over land. There's a lot of people say, why haven't we shot it down? Why haven't we shot it down? Well, I mean, wherever that thing lands, it's going to do a lot of damage. You've got to shoot it down over the water.
Matter of fact, we actually, Brad, we have the video you shot earlier today when the balloon came through portions of South Charlotte. We can show some of that here on the screen. What was that like for you to catch it this morning out your back door?
It was interesting. Evan Fisher, started posting this morning. He was getting pictures of it from the Asheville area in Western North Carolina. So I kind of started extrapolating. Okay, that means it's going to be in my Western horizon, probably close to 9:30ish, 10 o'clock. And initially I went out and I didn't see anything. And I went way in my backyard because I have a little spot where I couldn't see almost due west. And as soon as I looked that direction, just above the tree line, I saw it. And I'm like, holy cow, there it is. It was really easy to see with the naked eye. I kind of joked on my video. I didn't even have my glasses on and I could see it pretty well. So it was really easy to see. I had the binoculars out. And then taking the video of it, it was really fascinating. The level that it was at, the mid-level and upper-level jet stream was pretty much flying today over the Carolinas. For a balloon, it was moving pretty well. Think about it. This morning at sunrise, it was near the Tennessee border. And here, at 2:30ish, it's off the coast of South Carolina being shot down. That's a pretty fast-moving balloon, to be honest with you.
I think a lot of us were surprised at the tracking of it. When you first spot it in the sky, as we can see in your video, it doesn't look like it's moving all that fast because it's so high up and so far away. But you step inside, you come back, as I did for a cup of coffee, and you're like, oh yeah, it is moving at do we have any idea what the winds are like at 60,000 feet, Brad?
Well, today, that's a good question. Last night I looked, there was a little jet streak over North Carolina, Virginia. So it was probably right on the edge of that jet streak. And I'm guessing up there, that had to be well over 100 miles an hour up at that altitude. Now, again, the jet stream is, probably going to be more in that 25 to 35 mile an hour range. But again, it definitely looked like it was a little bit lower than it was when it was over the central and western U.S. Remember when it was over Montana, the Pentagon estimated it was close to 80 to 100,000 feet. Then over Missouri, they started saying, oh, it's close to 60,000 feet. By the time it got here, I would imagine it was probably more in the 30 to 40 or 50,000 range. It definitely was closer to the ground than I think it was out west. As it was moving. The one way, James, the one way I knew it was moving fast, I zoomed in with my 300 millimeter lens and did a video. And just to watch it in the frame in the back of my camera, how quickly it was moving, I was like, wow, that is actually, it's got some speed to it because it changed the position in the sky fairly quickly. One of the reasons it was so visible in the Western Carolinas, we had the perfect visibility. It happened close or shortly after sunrise. It was in the Western sky. Sunrise is in the eastern sky, and it illuminated that balloon vividly against the blue, crystal clear Carolina blue sky. And then as it got closer to the sun, it was hard to see because it was basically the lighting was not very ideal. I'm kind of curious. I want to pull up the ship tracking and see where these ships are going, because I think that's going to be the next thing to see what ships are responding in that area. Have they opened the airspace yet? I wonder.
So Jared was saying a few moments ago that he thought that the airspace was being reopened. The ground stop, we know for sure, goes until 5:15.
Wow, that's going to have a big impact on air travel on the East Coast. I mean, And that's another reason, you don't shoot it down over land. Could you imagine them having to shut down major airports over the U.S. for a whole afternoon?
And that's where in the last 2 hours, this began to feel a little bit different than it had the whole rest of the day.
Yeah.
Whereas as the airspace was being shut down, we're looking again here at video shot by the Carolina Weather Group over Myrtle Beach, where 2 booms were heard from those military aircraft that had been stalking the balloon. And the balloon still, as far as we know, is working on making its way down. The United States government confirming they have shot down the Chinese spy balloon and will be recovering its assets from the Atlantic Ocean here shortly. We are still awaiting to find out exactly when U.S. government officials may address the public and come to a microphone someplace to tell us what they have done and answer some questions. There are obviously lots of questions out there about when and why and how and what. And we don't know those answers still at this time. But what we do know at 3:12 here on the Saturday afternoon is that the airspace still seems pretty void of commercial aircraft following what appears to have been military action by the United States government here of the so-called Chinese surveillance balloon, which had been traversing the country for the last couple of days and made its way across the Carolinas throughout much of today, and then not much longer than moving offshore in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Here in the Carolinas, this national and international story playing out over our heads as soon as that balloon was somewhere out over the water. Matter of fact, Brad, I know you're working on bringing up the boat tracking to see, because not only are there government agencies that will clear the air, but they will also clear the ground and move people out of the way. But we had a great tweet a little while ago that gave us some good insights, and pilots are familiar with this, of course, but it shows us exactly where the airspace has been closed. And I'm going to put that on the screen here. I apologize. I know you guys are in Zoom and can't see it, but for the viewers watching right now on the public broadcast from the Carolina Weather Group and WCNC Plus, you can see in that no-fly zone off the coast of Wilmington and Charleston how far out to sea. They're really giving themselves some wiggle room here as this comes on down.
Yeah, I see a Navy ship cruising towards that debris field right now. I'm trying to look at the vessel details here. I'm pulling it up on my screen right now. It looks like some kind of frigate, but it's definitely a Navy ship, and it is flying. It's moving straight towards that area, so it is moving quick. But what's interesting, looking at some of the vessel traffic out there, there are some commercial vessels out there. There's a couple cruise ships not too far away, and it looks like a fishing and an oil vessel of some kind as well. So the ship that's heading there departed Morehead City this morning and has been cruising in that direction. So yeah, it's they're definitely heading in that general direction right now, and it looks like they're intercepting right where that debris field kind of fell straight down. I haven't seen any helicopters. I'm kind of interested. The Coast Guard didn't have like a helicopter out there, maybe checking it out as well.
Well, we know some of those fighter jets, obviously, were not showing up on Flight Tracker, although their refueling aircraft were. So
yeah,
I'd be curious to know what else is out there that maybe we can't see. I've still been watching radar on the side of our screen. Folks who were with us a few moments ago know that the Weather Service radar were picking up the debris as it was falling, and that has now disappeared off of the lowest measurement that the Weather Service radar can get us. And that is at, let's see here, that's approximately... What's the beam height of this?
I've still got it on Wilmington, I think.
Okay, let me switch over to Wilmington then. Oh,
but
yes,
it's a little bit way out. That looks like the lighter stuff that is floating in the wind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's, you're seeing that debris start to get into like, 2,000 feet. So, I mean, this is about down.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if there's a little bit of a redirection to the south once it gets into that, northeasterly, a little bit more northeasterly wind field. But
you can kind of see it if I play it back, Jared, over the last course of the last couple of frames. It's going to kind of be right in here. You can kind of see it. It's drifting further offshore.
Yes. Yep.
Play this back again one more time. So here's about 2:45. You can kind of see it. It's right. Oh, we just got a new picture, so it jumped on me. But right there, about 2:45. Then right about there now at 2:50, 3 o'clock, and you can kind of see how it just, and it is. I think Brad said it. It's spreading out. It's becoming elongated.
So if there's the heavier debris is probably going to fall more straight down. That lighter debris is drifting downwind. So my guess is, somewhere in the vicinity where the brighter reflectivity was occurring with the debris field is probably going to be the spot they're going to look for, because what they're going to want to recover is, if you saw some of the zoomed in pictures, you saw that huge solar array, and whatever instrumentation, antennas, whatever is on there is probably what they're going to want to recover, just to see what type of devices. Now, I don't know what value there is to if there's actually stuff on there that it recorded. It was probably all being transmitted somewhere, but they can tell by the type of instruments what kind of was it acoustic listening, was it visual? Obviously there was probably some kind of cameras. Was there something else that they were sampling, maybe doing some type of jamming of signals? I mean, you think about all the things people often, when this is happening, are going, why are they using such low tech? We've got spy satellites and all these other things. Well, the balloon can hover over areas for long periods of time. And, satellites, as great as they are, first of all, they cost a fortune, and they're not geostationary. Usually they're going to be orbiting. So they're only going to get so many times a day that we've got, images. And let's be honest, the greatest satellites still aren't going to get a better picture of something that's actually in our atmosphere. It's going to have a closer in. But to me, the thing that's interesting, you're close enough to the surface where you can intercept radio communication, right? Was that what they were trying to do? Were they trying to, get some information there? So a lot's going to happen here in the next couple of days. There'll be a lot of questions asked. I know a lot of people want to know, why did it take so long? Hey, here's the thing. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, but I would trust the experts in the military. They clearly had a plan that they're going to wait for this thing to be over open water. They were circling it yesterday with planes. They were, I would assume, jamming it, collecting information on it, doing all kinds of stuff. So I think we'll find out a lot more information. I think it's okay to ask questions, but if you don't know all the behind the scenes stuff, sometimes you just can't assume you know everything, because there's a lot of things we don't know.
Yeah, the defense secretary about 5 minutes ago released a statement. I'll read it here. This afternoon, at the direction of President Biden, U.S. fighter aircraft assigned to the U.S. Northern Command successfully brought down the high-altitude surveillance balloon launched by and belonging to the People's Republic of China over the water off the coast of South Carolina in U.S. airspace. The balloon, which was being used by the PRC in an attempt to surveil strategic sites in the continental United States, was brought down above U.S. territorial waters. On Wednesday, President Biden gave his authorization to take down the surveillance balloon as soon as the mission could be accomplished without undue risk to American lives under the balloon's path. After careful analysis, U.S. military commanders had determined downing the balloon while over land posed an undue risk to people across a wide area due to the size and altitude of the balloon and its surveillance payload. In accordance with the president's direction, the Department of Defense developed options to take down the balloon safely over our territorial waters while closely monitoring its path and intelligence collection activities. This action was taken in coordination and with the full support of the Canadian government, and we thank Canada for its contribution to tracking and analysis of the balloon through NORAD as it transited North America. Today's deliberate and lawful action demonstrates that President Biden and his national security team will always put the safety and security of the American people first while responding effectively to the PRC's unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. That is from Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense. So there you go. And that's exactly it. They didn't want to bring it down over land because, as we're seeing on radar, we're seeing that debris spread over a wide area. Yeah, we don't want it. They don't want to do that. So, Brad, I think what we're speculating here is pretty well confirmed now by the Secretary of Defense. And definitely what we're picking up on the radar right now is making that decision look, just and safe.
Yeah, that Navy ship I'm tracking is still moving at about 20 knots due west, so it's still heading towards something. I keep waiting to see for it to slow down to get a good gauge on maybe at the surface. And again, this ship does have a helicopter helipad on it, so they probably have helicopters they've launched as well to go look for the debris. And then they'll use the crane or whatever devices they have on the ship to maybe get it out of the water. You got to get there, but hopefully it doesn't all sink. That's the other thing you worry about. Stuff could be sinking as well.
As of 3:14, the FAA says that normal operations are resuming from Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, and Charleston.
Yeah, I'm starting to see planes taking off at Myrtle Beach and all three of those airports now. So that's a good sign.
Kind of funny. That's actually where I was supposed to be headed. I'm supposed to go up to the outlets to buy some jeans, and I took a little detour to the beach. But the outlet store that I was going to go to is actually right next to Charleston International Airport. Beautiful place for plane spotting, actually. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up. But again, I think
not only are commercial aircraft starting to take off again, but Brad, we do have just departing outside of Charleston here the U.S. Coast Guard helicopter.
Yeah.
Whether
And
that's
I just
connected or not, we have no idea.
Yeah. So the ship I was keeping an eye on, I didn't have a name. It's the USS Carter Hall, which is heading in that direction. So yeah, now that we got the Coast Guard helicopters taken off as well, that makes a lot of sense. They're probably going to start scouring for debris. Here's the thing you want to be careful of too. There's a lot of, basically, civilian boats and aircraft out there. We don't want civilians picking up random pieces of this Chinese balloon because it's national security interest. So that's why I'm surprised that the marine traffic hasn't been cleared out as much as it has either.
That is very interesting because it obviously is going to come down somewhere in the water. And before you joined our conversation here today, Brad, we were talking about what this theoretically could look like without having eyes out there. I'm envisioning some sort of crossover between how NASA scoops things up out of the water after a splashdown and how SpaceX manages to actually land vessels back onto a boat. But being that this is not under any control of the U.S. government, I'm guessing they're going to try to scoop it back up out of the water.
Yeah, that solar array and the instrumentation, I'm guessing for at least part of the time, the balloon remnants are buoyant enough that it would stay near the surface temporarily, but I would think it's going to sink fairly quickly. So I would assume there's divers on the standby as well to go in and maybe submersibles to head down underwater and grab whatever debris makes it down there.
We may never fully know, but hopefully we get some answers from officials later on this afternoon as we continue to track the debris signature on radar. This is normal National Weather Service radar. We are looking right now at a signature that is about 35 miles off the coast of North Myrtle Beach and continuing to move over the course of the last few minutes further offshore. So if you're right now in Myrtle Beach or out at Bullhead Island, Oak Island, you may be able to see some of this, if not during the operation because of the distance, but maybe when they start bringing things back on shore here in a little bit. They'll obviously have to figure out where they're going to bring it back into the country.
Yeah, it's it's interesting to say the least. And for those, that, you'll know there are tensions between China and the US. And I think the big story from this is going to be what was on that. That might really determine how big of a breach of national security this was. And maybe it's a threat, that we have to keep an eye on in the future. There's a lot of people speculating that this maybe not much of a balloon, but that it was a test to see about a response, how the US would respond to something like this. So there's way more questions than answers. And I hate to be like, you see on Twitter and Facebook, it's just people just randomly speculating and throwing out things as if it's fact. And we just don't know. It's like, yesterday we saw all kinds of people posting pictures of simple contrails in Montana, thinking that was an explosion or something. And you look at the video and you're like, that's just an airplane contrail. That's not an explosion. So it definitely makes people very anxious and worried. And so you just start jumping to conclusions. And usually when you do that, you make the wrong conclusion. So as much as we want to talk about it, I do want to be very careful about, what we speculate about, because we just don't know.
I will say Storm Chaser Nick on Twitter, he is the meme king of weather Twitter. tweets that the gender reveals are getting out of control. And
I know.
there's a big pink poof where the balloon was shot. It's just really funny.
Yeah.
Also, I can also see on Twitter some news agencies affiliated with the Chinese government also reporting now, CGTN specifically, that the U.S. has shot down the balloon. They obviously don't call it a surveillance balloon. I thought it was interesting. They didn't call it a weather balloon either, which is what they in the Chinese government were previously referring to this as. But the news reports making that side of the ocean as well.
Yeah. Listen, it's a world story.
It is a world story that came home right here to the Carolinas. And I think we're going to probably leave it about there as we await further answers from the U.S. government on what did and did not happen. And we look forward to the opportunity to hear from them, and also for reporters to get to ask their own questions, to hold the officials accountable here on what has transpired not only today off the coast of South Carolina, but also over the United States over the last couple of days. I would encourage everyone who's watching or listening with us to stay tuned and subscribed. I know right now we're on WCNC Plus, and they will have updates on the WCNC Plus and the WCNC apps throughout the day as information becomes available. For those of you here on the Carolina Weather Group, I know we talk about weather, we talk about space, we talk about technology. I don't think I ever foresaw a day where we'd be tracking a surveillance balloon, but this clearly became a crossover with weather and avionics here in a very peculiar Saturday afternoon, gentlemen.
If there's a ridge set up over the east, this goes in a very different place. Goes over New York. Because, I mean,
if this thing was truly non-maneuverable and just at the whim of the weather patterns, this thing could have ended up in 1,000 different locations. But
if it falls over land, you got all kinds of issues of, like I said, out there, there's less people for it to fall on and less people to go grab material over the water. Like I said, there are a handful of ships out there, but there's 5. You know exactly everybody who's out over the water right now. If this falls over central US and parts fall in people's backyards, you may never see them again. So there's a lot of reasons for it. I can see a lot of reasons that they did it this way, and it's really it's like I said, it's everybody wants to be mad about something. It's like if no matter what happened, there was somebody was going to get upset over this whole thing. It's a big deal, it's an invasion of privacy. It's national security issues. So there's a lot going on here. So it is very interesting to see that the way they executed this so quickly today, as you guys mentioned. It went from like, hey, it's going to be over the Western Carolinas to, oh my gosh, they're shutting airspace down. And the actual, I don't know if you read that notice to airman, it actually said deadly force was likely going to be used over this no-fly area. And you're like, wow, that's pretty specific. You don't normally see that in a notice to airmen from the FAA, but and the other thing was interesting. I don't know if Jared, if you read that whole thing, basically cautioning against drones and other aircraft to stay out of that area, and they would be met with deadly force as well, which was pretty dramatic verbiage to see in there.
You don't generally speaking, you don't want to be on the business end of an F-22. That's just a general rule I try to live my life by. It's probably good that they, spelled that out. I think it was pretty obvious what was going to happen when they started closing the airspace. But yeah, that really spelled it out. I mean, that was, there you go. Woo!
Yeah, I had to read it twice, and I'm like, wow, I don't think I've ever read this in an FAA notice before. It was pretty specific. Usually they're very cryptic, like national security zone, stay out, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, you're just guessing. Well, they were like, hey, this is what's happening. Do not come in here. It was like,
they pretty much could have just said, we're going to shoot down the balloon.
Yeah, but I think the thing they were worried about was other people would see that and take their drones and fly them and try to get in there to go viral, to catch this all. And they said, if you do that, you're going to be shot down as well. So they weren't messing around when they did that. So that was pretty specific. And I'm glad they lifted it early, because that's a huge impact for folks that are traveling out of Charleston, Myrtle Beach, or Wilmington. Those aren't huge airports, I know, for most of the country, but for regionally, those are pretty important airports, especially if you're trying to go to the coast.
Absolutely. Yeah. All flight restrictions have now been lifted. The ground stops have been ended. U.S. Commercial airspace is open again along the North Carolina and South Carolina coast after being shut down, as Brad was alluding to, for military exercise here, as the United States government has shot down the Chinese surveillance balloon off the coast of Myrtle Beach. And any moment now, we expect that that'll come down into the waters, as it is just barely still visible on some of the lowest scans of Weather Service radar. Right now, the closest one out of Wilmington has it at about 3,000 feet or less. And so we will, again, continue to watch for hopefully some answers to follow. We know everyone has lots of questions, so stay subscribed wherever you are. Thank you for joining us here on this very unusual Saturday afternoon on WCNC Plus, the Carolina Weather Group, and other places, as we've been tracking what was a remarkable crossover between weather, news, and military action here at home and on the home front. And again, updates to follow throughout the afternoon. But special thanks to Brad Panovich, Chief Meteorologist at WCNC Charlotte. We had Jared Smith from the Carolina Weather Group in Charleston, along with Scotty Powell and Evan Fisher. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. I'm not sure how to close this one out. We'll talk to you again real soon. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday afternoon, and stay tuned to updates to follow throughout the day on the WCNC app.